Have you ever found yourself literally standing right by the door, keys in your hand, completely ready to head out, again when absolutely nothing is waiting for you? You're moving so fast, saying yes to things way too quickly, just rushing from place to place, all so you don't have to sit still. Well, welcome to today's Explainer. We are unpacking a genuinely fascinating, deeply psychological breakdown from the channel Holy Wisdom. They examine this heavy, almost exhausting intensity of constantly running. And their core argument? A lot of our movement isn't progress at all. It's an illusion. It's literally just a way to avoid the quiet of our own homes.
Okay, let's dive into this. Ask yourself honestly right now, are you filling your days with noise just to avoid facing what's actually going on inside your own heart? According to the analysis, so many of us use background noise, the constant scrolling on our phones, endless errands. We use it all as a shield. We don't want to just be in the house because when the movement stops, well, we're left alone with ourselves. This inability to be still isn't just some quirky modern habit. It's an active, deliberate avoidance of the deeper internal work that actually needs to be done. Section 1. The cost of constant motion. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it breaks down the specific internal costs of all this impulsive movement. Living without true alignment takes a real toll. It's like a slow leak, secretly draining your internal resources while you're just busy looking busy. First, it completely robs you of your clarity. Then, your focus starts fading away. Your sense of direction slips, and you don't even notice it happening. You start making decisions that, sure, they look reasonable on the outside, but they aren't actually aligned with where you're meant to be. And that leads right into this lingering, quiet confusion. You end up taking on responsibilities you honestly shouldn't have, and inside, things are just thinning out. To counteract this, the source anchors its argument in a text from Matthew. It says, "When you pray, go into your room, close the door." Notice how it doesn't say go out or look around. It says go in and close the door. This is because, according to the source, God's deepest work begins exactly when those worldly distractions finally end. When that door is closed, there's no noise to lean on anymore, no movement to hide behind. It's just you. Everything feels incredibly exposed, but that raw exposure is exactly where the real structural internal rebuilding has to start.
Section 2. Set apart, not left behind.
And this brilliantly illustrates a major paradigm shift. Stepping into that quiet space often triggers a really uncomfortable feeling for us. We tend to look at staying home as missing out, like we're just standing still and letting time pass us by. But the source flips that worldly narrative completely on its head. This isn't missing out. It's being set apart. It's a divinely orchestrated period of preparation and restoration. You're actually being removed from environments that subtly compromise your clarity. This verse from 2 Corinthians is used to really hammer the point home. Come out from among them and be separate. The source explains that this separation isn't about creating distance without a purpose. It's a protective boundary. You see, staying in spaces that are just filled with modern drama and constant noise actually softens your standards. It makes you compromise on the little things. So God essentially draws a line around your life to reset those standards. You aren't missing out at all. You're being kept away from what would interfere with your true growth.
Section 3. Breaking the noise addiction.
Let's move 2 and see how this builds. Because transitioning away from that constant stimulation requires a deeply uncomfortable, raw psychological detox. Step 1 is literally just enduring the silence. You sit down, no phone, and your mind absolutely races. Step 2 is facing that intense internal resistance, that physical itch to reach for a screen or just to move around so you can break the quiet. But if you can stay in it, you reach step 3, your thoughts finally start settling. They slow down. And that perfectly leads to step 4, gaining true clarity. You realize you don't need more input. You just need to clear the space so what is already there can finally come into focus.
The source highlights this beautifully with the story of Elijah from 1 Kings. Elijah stood waiting for God. First, there was a mighty wind, but God wasn't in it. Then came an earthquake, then a fire, but God wasn't in any of those loud, dramatic events. God was in the still, small voice that followed. The point here is that God doesn't try to compete for your attention with loud surroundings. He patiently waits for your life to be quiet enough to actually hear the underlying truth. You don't need the truth to be louder, you need your life to be quieter.
Which brings us straight to Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. The channel uses this scripture to expose a pretty harsh reality. If you are entirely unable to just sit still, it reveals a deeply unsettled internal state. It's not that God is distant, right? It's that your attention is completely fractured. Stillness isn't just empty space. It's the actual environment where meaning finally crystallizes.
Section 4. training in the ordinary. So, the crucial point is what happens after you break that noise addiction. This is where the practical rebuilding phase kicks in. It's all about how you handle those unseen daily disciplines. How do you start your morning? What do you do when absolutely no one is watching you? Do you follow through on simple, completely unglamorous tasks? The source warns that if you neglect these small, ordinary habits, you are basically setting yourself up to collapse later under public pressure. Real strength doesn't come from sudden bursts of intensity. It comes from quiet, aligned repetition. The explainer highlights the immense weight of this verse from Luke. Whoever is faithful in little is faithful also in much. Mishandling your ordinary time creates these completely unnecessary, long-term delays in your life. If you're sitting around waiting for some massive, significant opportunity, but you're treating your current quiet responsibilities lightly, well, you aren't actually ready. You are just delaying your own growth. What God builds in secret is what stands in public. Let's look at the example of David, who was out working completely alone in a field, totally forgotten by everyone else when he was chosen. David didn't just suddenly become strong the day he faced Goliath. No, he was already strong. The public fight simply revealed the structural character that had been built in the routine, right there in the secret spaces where absolutely no one was watching.
Section 5. Ordered steps, not open doors. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it defines discernment. Once you've embraced the quiet, how do you know when it's actually time to move? Discernment isn't just about avoiding the obvious mistakes. The channel defines it as recognizing what is not for you, even if it looks like a perfectly good opportunity. Saying no to superficially good options is what prevents your focus from dividing. If you're simply being impulsive and calling it being open to opportunities, you're going to end up carrying burdens you were never, ever meant to carry.
The explainer relies on Psalm 37:23 for this, pointing out a really critical word: ordered. Because steps are ordered, it means that not every single open door out there is part of the plan. Sometimes things are just distractions, totally disguised as opportunities. Choosing to stay rooted and actually turn down a good-looking opportunity, that isn't an act of hesitation, it is an act of deep, intentional obedience. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive contrast. Chasing open doors almost always means impulsive availability, which leads to a divided focus and a really stretched, exhausting life. But waiting for ordered steps, that results in rooted obedience and clear direction. You're not just out there frantically chasing opportunities anymore. You're following a steady, incredibly peaceful direction. To wrap up the channel's perspective, they point directly to Philippians 1:6. He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. The explainer emphasizes having a deep trust in this slow, seemingly incomplete work that's happening right where you currently are. They urge us not to treat our current season at home as a delay or some kind of pause, but to honor it as the exact place where we are being shaped, completely free from distraction. So, as we conclude today's analysis, I want to leave you with one final thought. Take a moment. What is being built in your quiet season? Are you letting the stillness shape you, or are you rushing back to the door, keys in hand, desperate for the next distraction? The time you spend in the quiet, ordinary is exactly what will hold you up when the real pressure comes. Thanks for exploring this with us. Think on that, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.